Content warning. Episodes of Grey Matter may contain themes and depictions of extreme mental illness, traumatic bodily harm, and death. If you aren't in the right headspace to engage with those depictions right now, maybe this episode should wait for another time. Otherwise, proceed with caution.
Hi there. Welcome back to Grey Matter Video. I'm glad you made it in when you did. We're closing early today so I can make it across town to my cousin's bar mitzvah. And to be honest, I'm dreading it. I don't know how you feel about your family, but I know how I feel about mine, and I'm never all that excited to see them. We don't have much in common, or even much to discuss, and when we all get together, I find myself hiding behind a mask that looks like me, but otherwise isn't very similar at all. So what does it mean to be a family? Well, whether united through chains of flesh or only fate's umbilical, family are the people that expect things of us, and if we're lucky, they have something to offer in return. But is family a duty? Is it an obligation, a prison sentence, or just a biologically similar support group, mindlessly shuffling down an evolutionary path to avoid genetic extinction? And if you go back far enough, we're all related, aren't we? Every human soul you encounter every day was once part of the same froth that rose to the churning top of the primordial soup, and although our minds may have forgotten, our bodies remember. Whether family, friends, or strangers, we are all one tribe of terribly frightened, easily confused apes, and we rely on our innate genetic desire for cooperation every day. But what do we owe each other, our fellow passengers to the grave? And what does it cost? This tape is called Flesh and Blood, and it's about a long-suffering sister taking care of her ailing brother, whose suffering has only just begun. Maybe we'll learn something along the way, or maybe we'll just be sad and grossed out, but it's worth a shot, isn't it?
Flesh and Blood. Written and directed by Jonathan Inbody and adapted from The Novel of the White Powder from The Three Imposters by Arthur Machen.
Hey, I came as soon as I heard.
Hi, I know you did, and I know it's probably not easy. Take your shoes off, come on in. So how have you been, Heather? I haven't seen you for a while.
About the same. How about you?
You mean other than the obvious?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, Maggie left, so...
After the diagnosis, or...
Yeah, things are kind of tough already, so, I can't even really blame her. Sorry, I'm not very good company.
Well, you've got a pretty good excuse, James.
Do you think I should try putting that on my dating apps? 6 months to live, no strings attached?
Is that how long they said?
No, I was just joking. They told me the same thing they told Mom when we were kids. Could be a year, could be 10. Get your affairs in order and try to set up full-time care while you're still high-functioning. You know, a couple of months ago, kept losing track of appointments, forgot my anniversary. I worried myself sick, terrified that this was finally it. But when the test results came back, I couldn't bring myself to believe it. I'm so young, you know? Mom wasn't this young.
It's unfair. Life, death, all of it. I mean, how do you raise 2 kids with a death sentence hanging over you? Even if she didn't know she had it yet, she knew there were a couple of people on Grandpa's side of the family that did. How could she have kids knowing she could pass that on?
Well, she didn't mean to, you know that.
No, I know. Just, it's a hell of a world.
She used to call it the family curse, do you remember? Like we must have, I don't know, pissed off a witch or something. I'm starting to wonder if she was right.
So what are you going to do? Do you have money for a nurse?
No, I'm pretty much, I mean, look at the state of the place. Not exactly a luxury apartment, is it?
It's not bad. Better than where I'm living.
Well, do you want to move in? I could use the company.
James.
I'm just kidding.
Are you?
I mean, I don't...
Because you didn't see what Mom was like at the end. When she couldn't remember her name, dress herself, feed herself. When she could talk, she would just ramble. She said demons were coming to her in her sleep or that she could hear elves talking in the walls. Whatever insane thing happened to come to her mind. Taking care of someone in that state, it's...
Heather, that's not... Just let me...
I can't do that again. I can't see that again, and I can't be a part of it.
I don't have anyone else. I don't... What do you want me to do? I'm alone. Mom's dead. Maggie left. You're all I've got.
I'm not having this conversation right now.
No, Heather, just wait.
I didn't stop walking until I reached the street, and when I turned to look up at his apartment from the outside of the building, I didn't see him in the window. The whole thing made me feel sick, and I hunched over and threw up in an alley while I waited for the bus. My hands were shaking the whole way home. My brother, the only family I had left, was dying, and I couldn't bring myself to help him. But he hadn't seen Mom at the end. He'd been away at college while I took care of her. I was the one that had to watch her rot, to comfort her when she didn't know where she was or what was happening to her. The one who had to care for the mindless thing left living in her body when she was too far gone to know. And now he wanted me to do it again. I tossed and turned all night, but by morning I knew what I had to do. There was a specialist that used my mother's case for research, an old family friend that had taken some of the burden onto his own shoulders and eased her suffering in her final days. Maybe he'd know what to do, or at least how to deal with it.
It's good to see you, Heather. Although I have to say I hope this day would never come.
I just thought if anyone would understand.
I do. And I wish there was more I could do for you. Your mother's case made my career. I don't know if you knew that. I didn't mean for it to, but it did.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring all of this back to you.
No, it's... Helping to take care of your mother was one of the great joys of my life. A wonderful woman, always was, and she loved you two so much. To think, Taylor Vaughn's disease is going to take another Lancaster. What a waste.
But it's been years. There's got to be new treatments, new medicine.
There are hardly enough sufferers for it to even be studied. It's a fascinating condition, actually, or at least it would be if it weren't so horrific. I mean, functionally, the brain nearly boils itself by the end. The first man to discover it was looking for an explanation for his own symptoms, but he ended up documenting his own neurological decline for as long as he was able to hold a pen. It's tragic, but the observations he made, the tests he put himself through, they've been absolutely vital in the search for a cure. Like Huntington's, Taylor Vaughn's disease starts with brain inflammation, but as it nears the end stages, it begins to present with more extreme neurological symptoms similar to a prion disease like Creutzfeldt-Jakob's. There's been some recent speculation that the apparent hereditary nature of the illness is more of a red herring, that the disease seeming to pass from parents to children is only correlation due to similar genetic makeup rather than direct causation.
Dr. Haberman, I don't know what any of that means.
Sorry. Once I get going on a train of thought, it takes me a second to, switch rails, as it were. More or less, what I'm telling you is, we really don't know much more about Taylor Vaughn's today than we did when your mother died.
What am I supposed to do? What is James supposed to do?
Depending on his income, he may be able to apply for a government program to cover the cost of palliative care. I can find the paperwork for you.
He doesn't need paperwork. He needs treatment. He needs hope.
There's a pharmaceutical trial, some new drug intended to treat Alzheimer's. He's not the kind of subject they're looking for, but he might be a close enough fit to meet their requirements. I can make a few calls.
Please.
Heather, I'm not sure how to say this, but this drug, I've heard some troubling rumors. Apparently, and I haven't seen the data, so I don't... Well, according to a friend of mine, one of the test subjects lost a finger. It turned black and rotted right off of her hand, like it just died while it was still attached to her. And another subject, there was a rash on the side of his leg, and when he scratched it, a strip of skin came off under his fingernail. Now, this is a medical trial, so he might get the placebo instead, but it's enough to make me hesitate.
Does it work? The pill, does it help?
Yes.
Then it's worth the risk. I went back to James' apartment that night to tell him the news, and when I walked past his bedroom on my way to the bathroom, I glanced into his open closet, where a necktie in the shape of a makeshift noose was hanging from the crossbeam. I didn't say anything, and neither did he, but I think he could tell I had seen it by the look on my face when I came back to the living room. I told him about the drug, told him the rumors Dr. Haberman had heard about the side effects, and after a long discussion, he told me he was willing to give it a try. The next few days moved quickly. There were consultations, physical exams, a thorough questionnaire about family medical history, and most importantly, a stack of papers indemnifying the makers of the experimental drug from liability. Just in case. But when I dropped James off at home with the bottle of his new pills, he smiled just like he used to. We ordered some cheap takeout to celebrate, and after we ate, he unscrewed the child-proof cap of his bottle and dropped a small, chalk-white pill into the center of his hand.
Here goes nothing, huh? Down the hatch. Oh, it's bitter.
I think that's a fair trade-off, don't you?
It is if it works. I wanted to say thank you. I know it's been busy and stressful, but thank you for everything. I mean, I don't know if I'd even been able to keep track of the appointments without your help. I wanted to say I'm sorry, too. It wasn't right, me asking you to live here and take care of me. You've already done more than your fair share, just from taking care of Mom, and it was wrong to ask you to do more.
Thank you, James. It means a lot. But you were right. We're family. The only family either of us have left. And even if it hurts, I should be here for you. I owe you that. I know you'd do the same for me.
Heather.
You would. And now that some of the dust has settled, I wanted to tell you. I talked to my landlord and he's going to let me out of my lease at the end of the month. So I can be here. I can live with you and I can help for as long as you need me. We'll have to work a few things out, establish some boundaries so I don't get burnt out, but I'm going to help you through this.
Are you sure? Because I know things with Mom were tough on you, and I don't want to be a burden.
Well, then keep taking your medicine and listen to me when I tell you things, and you won't be. I don't know if we had ever been as close as we were that night, or as we became over the next few weeks. Deep down, we both knew it was the medicine that was giving us the strength, less the mixture than what it represented. It was hope, taken twice daily in the shape of a small white tablet, and some days it was all that kept us going. Then one morning, I noticed a small black spot on James' left hand, just between his thumb and forefinger. It wasn't quite a bruise, with yellowed edges around the pitch-black, half-transparent skin. And when I looked at it closely, I swore I could see dark, thin muscle underneath. It almost glowed in the light, or flickered like black fire. After a few seconds of staring, James moved his other hand to cover it up, muttering something about bumping it into a bookcase before walking to the bathroom for a bandage. When he came back, the spot was covered, and despite my concern, he refused to let me see it. The next day, he came into the kitchen with most of his hand wrapped in gauze, and after taking his morning pill, I saw him press the back of his hand against his leg and wince. Before I could say anything, he was off again, locked in his bedroom as I got ready for work. I waited outside the apartment's front door just after I stepped out, and before I started down the hallway, I heard a door open inside. He was already sleeping when I got home, but I knocked on the door to wake him up and left some dinner sitting just outside. When I walked past a few hours later as I headed for bed, the plate was empty. The morning after, James got up late, almost staggering on a stiff leg through the kitchen as I did the dishes. Instead of his usual shorts, he was wearing a pair of soft-looking lounge pants, and the long sleeve of a sweatshirt covered his arm above his bandaged hand. Are you okay? You look terrible.
Thanks.
No, I'm serious. Let me look at your hand.
I just cut it. It's not...
I thought you said you bumped it into something. James, let me see it. I can help.
It's fine. I promise. It's fine. I think the pills are starting to work, by the way. I feel a lot more like myself lately. Less confused, less feverish, all of it. So maybe I bruise a little more easily now, or maybe it takes bruises a little longer to heal, but it's worth it. I mean, what if it really works? What if I can have my life back? What if you can have yours?
You'd tell me if it was bad, wouldn't you?
Of course I would. I'm just a little achy, a little tired, and I got a spot on my hand that looks like a rotten banana. No biggie, right?
We should tell Dr. Haberman.
Let's have him over for dinner. I've been meaning to thank him anyway after what he did for us. He'll probably be relieved to see me feeling better.
Yeah. A few nights later, the three of us sat around the small dinner table at our apartment, making conversation as we finished off an old family recipe. If nothing else, James still had his appetite, and Dr. Haberman wasn't far behind, but all I did was push my food back and forth on my plate while they talked. It felt wrong to enjoy myself, to try and make the best of it, even as James managed to. Couldn't they feel it? That heaviness in the air, hanging over us like a cloud?
You know, it's really strange, because some of the genetic markers for the disease can be found in animals, but only in species that haven't undergone significant change in millions of years. Alligators, sharks, things like that.
So, what, you're saying the Lancasters are descended from Neanderthals?
Oh no, much older than that. As a carrier of Taylor Vaughn's, you have genetic material inside of you that might as well be a carryover from the primordial slime.
Well, that's good, because that's what it's trying to turn my brain into.
James.
I'm the one who's dying. I can make the joke.
Well, I, for one, hope you still have a long, happy life ahead of you. Heather said you've been feeling better since you started taking the medicine?
I feel like myself again. Honestly, it's...
He has a bruise on his hand he won't show me, and he was having trouble walking.
Is that true? Would you let me take a look at you? After dinner, of course.
Yeah, of course.
You should trust your sister, you know. She's only trying to help, and she can't do that if you hide things from her. Even with the medication, your mental state could start to deteriorate at any time. There's no knowing when you won't be able to trust yourself until it's too late. Lucian Taylor, that's the man who discovered the disease, was a perfectly ordinary, functional member of 1800 society when he started his research. But somewhere along the way, he started to fall apart. First, he became convinced that one of his maids was trying to kill him, poisoning his meals with herbs used in the witch's sabbath. And by the end, he didn't even believe he was human. He thought his father had made a deal with some otherworldly thing to produce a son, and that his condition was the result of incompatible genetics. He went from a genius to a frothing lunatic in under a year. Now, that's not to say that'll happen to you, obviously, but it does mean that you need to be cautious. Let yourself be cared for. It'll make things easier.
I will.
After dinner, the two of them went into James' bedroom while I cleaned up. I could hear them talking, quietly, tensely, and when I heard footsteps moving back towards the hall, I heard Dr. Haberman raise his voice for what I knew was my benefit.
Make sure to change the bandages daily and eat plenty of fruits and vegetables.
How is he?
Oh, it's a little bit of bruising. Something to watch, but nothing to panic over.
You look a little flushed.
Yes, I just need some fresh air, that's all. Excuse me, I've got to, thank you for dinner.
After the doctor left, James didn't leave his room for the rest of the night. And in the morning, while I sat in the kitchen ready to make breakfast at a moment's notice, I didn't even hear him stir. So as 10 approached 11, I went down the hall and listened at his door. James?
I'm fine. I'm really wiped out today, so I think I'm just gonna rest.
What about your medicine?
You can leave it by the door.
I can bring it in for you. I thought it was helping you. Don't you want it?
Just leave it outside.
Why? What did Haberman say? Did he... What's happening to you?
Heather.
No, Let me in, I can... I stumbled into the room as the door swung open, then turned with embarrassment to see I'd broken the knob. James was in bed, everything but his head and shoulders still underneath his blanket, and as I stepped over, he shrank back and pulled the blanket up over his chin. You can't do this to me. I'm serious. I can help, but I have to see it. I heard a horrible, squelching tear as I pulled back the blanket, and when I looked at the bunched up fabric in my hand, I almost threw up. There was a thin film of black, rotting paste, half liquid and half solid, streaked down the blanket, with strings of viscous black stretching back down to the bed. My eyes followed them down to James' arm, where just below the soaked-through bandage of his injured hand was a patch of raw, rotting flesh on his wrist, the veins and muscles stained black and deteriorating, surrounded by the jagged edges of a freshly torn scab. The paste on the blanket, it was his skin. Oh my God.
He doesn't know what's wrong with me, Heather. He doesn't know what's happening. I think I'm melting.
We have to call someone, James. We have to get you to a hospital.
No, please, no hospitals. They'll take my hand, Heather. They'll cut it off.
But it's rotting. It'll kill you if they don't amputate it. I saw an expression of deep pain move across his face, and after a second he weakly leaned forward to roll up one of his pant legs with his good hand. The flesh underneath was black. I stared at it in vacant horror, then looked back up at his face. He slowly nodded, then winced as he rolled the pant leg back down.
It's all over. There's spots all over. If they start cutting, I don't know how much of me will be left.
I swayed on my feet, suddenly lightheaded. James quickly sat up to help me, then sank back to his pillow as his face contorted with pain. I stumbled over to the dresser and leaned both hands on it, putting my head down while I regained my balance. Why didn't you tell me?
It wasn't this bad yesterday. Haberman told me to stop taking the pills, and after how much you sacrificed, I couldn't tell you we lost our last best chance.
I hate you.
You don't, but you should. It's not right making you go through this again just because I was afraid of being alone. And, like it wasn't enough already. Now this. We should make this easier on you. Just take a pillow and... I'm weak, and, you can just say you don't know how it happened, that I died in my sleep. I don't think anyone's going to try and argue with you after they see me. I want you to, Heather. I don't know how much worse it can get, but what if it does? I don't want to see it. I don't want to feel it. I'm dead already anyway.
I'm not doing that. I won't.
You did it for Mom.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, you do. The morphine drip at the hospital. We all knew. We just didn't... You did the right thing, and no one wanted you to get hurt. Haberman talked to the nurses, smoothed over a couple of things to keep it from getting out.
I can't know that. Do you have any idea how long I've hated myself?
It was the right thing to do, Heather. I would have done it too.
But you didn't. You let me, because you couldn't bear to... Is that why you wanted me to move in? The real reason? Not to take care of you, but to...
I thought if it got bad, if I wasn't... I knew you could do what needed to be done.
You son of a...
I was scared. I needed the reassurance. I needed to know there was someone who cared, who wouldn't let me suffer.
I'm not... What the fuck were you... I did sacrifice. I am helping you, and I'm doing it because you're my brother, and it's the right thing to do, and you... What? You just wanted someone with the backbone to pull the plug?
You say that like it makes me some kind of monster. But I'm not. I'm a human being. What's the point of choosing how to live your life if you can't choose how to end it?
You can choose, James. But you can't make me do it for you. I'm leaving, and I'm not coming back. If you need help, call Dr. Haberman, but don't call me. I won't come to the phone. I'm mourning.
Please. Please don't leave me alone. Not when I need you the most.
It's funny. You were never there when I needed you. I could hear him crying as I packed a bag, getting louder whenever he could hear I had stopped moving around. Every passing second felt like a knife in my chest, but I couldn't stay, not if all he wanted me to be was an executioner. Is that all family really was? Just people to export grief to? Was I naive for thinking it was anything more? On the bus ride to a motel, I passed the cemetery where Mom's gravestone was. There was nothing in the coffin, not anymore. Only bones, her most expensive outfit, and the dried up remains of melted flesh. At least the worms hadn't gone hungry. At least the vicious cycle of life continued unabated. Death is what we are, all of us. And life is what you do while you wait for your body to catch up. I knew that now, undeniably, and yet I couldn't keep myself from crying. But as the next day passed while I watched daytime TV in the hotel room and applied for jobs online, the weight on my shoulders slowly lifted. I felt free, freer than I had been since before I had gotten James' call. Solitude I could handle. I knew better than to ask too much of myself, and I trusted myself to be honest. I'd see the extended family at the funeral, great aunts and retired uncles that would ask me how I was as though they actually cared, who would listen politely as I tried to avoid giving them any unpleasant details about the deceased. What could I even say? That there wouldn't be anything left but vapor if they tried to cremate him? That the most respectful burial we could give him was in a watertight sleeping bag? I tried to stifle the guilt inside me, tried to ignore when my hands shook and my eyes wanted to cry, tried to not feel guilty about the smile on my face and the lightness in my heart. But it wasn't any good. By the third day, I could feel a horrible, yawning emptiness inside me, the physical proof of a mental obligation. I fought against it as long as I could, crying and shaking as I held my phone and considered turning it back on. I knew there would be messages, voicemails, desperate grasps in my direction. What is it they say about drowning people? That when you help them, you have to be careful they don't drag you down too? Dr. Haberman? It's Heather.
Oh, I'm pretty busy today. What is it you need?
Have you heard from James?
Heard? Isn't he... Aren't you with him?
I had to leave for a day or two, just to clear my head. I told him to call you if he needed anything.
Listen, Heather. Watching your mother die, seeing what she went through, it cost me. Do you understand? Weighed on me, and I can't... There's only so much I can do. Only so much I can take.
So what? I'm on my own?
I'm sorry.
I sat on the hotel bed for a long time after that, staring down at the phone in my hand. There hadn't been any text waiting for me when I turned it on. No long list of missed calls or quivering voicemails. Was James even still there, or... My hands were shaking while I rode the bus to his apartment building, and my legs felt like jelly as I went up in the elevator. As I stepped out onto his floor, I saw a woman standing in front of our apartment's front door, pounding an angry fist on it as she yelled inside.
I know you're up here. I can hear you moving, and I'm not going away until you... Oh, do you live here?
No, but my brother does. Why?
There's something dripping through the floor into my bedroom. It's black, thick like ink, but it smells disgusting. I've called the landlord, but I thought I'd just come up here for myself.
I have a key. Do you want to come in with me?
No, You go ahead, just tell him the landlord's going to come by.
I will. James? The apartment was dark, almost pitch black, and a sickly sweet smell greeted my nose as I stepped inside. The kitchen sink was full of dirty dishes, with a few flies buzzing back and forth, and as I walked past it, I swore I could hear someone shift in James' bedroom down the hall. It's me. I just came to check on you. James? Are you in here? Are you...
Alive?
A dark, ink-black shape rose up from behind the empty bed, its two misshapen eyes almost glowing in the dark. With each long, rotten movement, I heard its limbs gurgle and tear, and as it shambled towards me, it left streaking, putrid footsteps on the carpet.
I'm still here, Heather. Right where you left me. And it hurts. It hurts so bad.
A hand reached out with twisted, grasping tendrils that used to be fingers, the half-liquid flesh dangling off of the blackened bone like raindrops of tar. The body, if it could be called that, was sagging and half-rotted, with tangles of black organs that swayed back and forth behind a desiccated ribcage with each lurching step.
I took my medicine after you left. The whole bottle. I thought it would... I just wanted it to be over. But it didn't. It didn't kill me. It did what it was supposed to do. I've never been more clear-headed, more keenly and perfectly aware of every single stinging nerve and aching, rotting muscle. It's still me in here. My mind is the picture of health trapped in a corpse.
Don't try to move, James. Please,
I think Lucien Taylor was right. I don't think I'm human, not where it counts. Maybe it's fate or original sin, but I think somewhere back at the dawn of time, someone mixed with something strange. Something from outside. Something from the teeming black beyond the doors of sleep. And us. We're just the afterbirth.
You're not making any sense. You have to rest. You can't...
I'm not stopping. I can't. I tried to do it, but my body wouldn't let me. It won't let me die, Heather. You have to help me.
I can't.
It's too late to choose.
He lunged forward and grabbed at my sleeve, his liquefied legs collapsing underneath him as I stepped back towards the hall. He toppled forward, smacking into his dresser and overturning a table lamp, and when he hit the ground, his hand flattened underneath him into a putrid pile of fingers, muscle, and bone. He let out an agonized moan as I picked up the fallen lamp, weighing it in my hands in case I had to use it to defend myself, and after only a second, his other arm shifted to push his body up off the floor.
I'm not gonna stop. Not until I'm dead, or you are.
Please! You're not thinking straight! He lurched after me again, dragging a limp leg behind him as his black foot twisted underneath a liquid ankle. Shreds of his smashed arm dangled at his side as he reached out with the other, his rotted fingers aimlessly wiggling and grasping, and the sunken, fiery points that were once his eyes burned with demented hate from inside a melted skull. I stumbled back against the wall, then started to slide down it towards the bathroom as he shambled after me. The smell was overwhelming now, and as he emerged from the dark bedroom, I saw a cloud of fruit flies buzzing around his chest and shoulders, zagging in and out of his wet rib cage to feed on the dissolving guts inside.
Please. Just kill me. I would do it for you. You know I would do it for you.
He lowered, getting ready to push himself forward again, and when he lunged, I ducked to the side. He toppled forward into the bathroom and collided with the sink, leaving a black splatter as he flipped back and fell hard into the tub, pulling the shower curtain down with him. I heard his rotted limbs sliding and flailing against the sides of the tub as I slowly walked over, my grip tightening on the lamp. He stared up at me, his eyes black with hate, and a squelching, disgusting tear rose up from somewhere in his stomach. The mounds of decayed flesh split and tore open, and I couldn't tell if the writhing, lashing things inside were organs or tentacles. With a guttural, agonized moan, I saw his tongue slip out of his mouth, and a long, gnarled shape curled out to replace it. His burning eyes met mine, and I could feel my hand shaking around the stem of the lamp.
I hope, I really do, that if it happens to you too, that there's someone left someone you trust, to do the right thing.
A few days later, after the funeral arrangements had been made and the apartment had been sealed off for possible condemnation, Dr. Haberman came to visit me at the hotel. He looked pale when I opened the door, and although I offered him a seat, he just kept pacing the room. I was surprised to hear from you.
Well, I thought you might need my support.
I did. Why are you here?
First, I just wanted to apologize for my lack of conviction. But after what happened with your mother, you know I loved her.
I knew. Is that why you're here?
No, that's secondary, really. I did some digging, asked some questions, and pushed my way into some rooms. About the pills, the trial drug. And I learned something disturbing. You see, they were concerned about the side effects too. Not just concerned, but confused, frankly. So they went over their data line by line, checked up on every ingredient they had put inside, and all of it added up. It couldn't explain what they'd been seeing until they checked the production facility. There was some mistake in the mixture, some chemical leak. One of the prototype batches of pills had mercury in it. The amount of pills your brother had taken, there was nothing anyone could have done for him. Nothing but what... I'm sorry to have to ask this, Heather, but how did James die? Was it natural?
What are you asking me exactly? Are you asking me if I killed him?
If you did, you were doing him a favor. I know I'd want someone to if I
didn't.
All right. I only ask because people all die the same, more or less. Even when strange things happen to them, there's a pattern to it. And when you're a child, you're told the world has rules. You don't know what they are yet, but you learn. At least you think you learn until you feel like you've got a grasp of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, but I don't understand.
There are things that... just the possibilities. Recently, let me just say that my faith in a world with rules has been shaken.
Why?
Because when I talked to the doctors running the trial, when they checked the paperwork, all of them swore your brother had gotten the placebo. Flesh and Blood was written and directed by Jonathan Inbody. It was adapted from the chapter The Novel of the White Powder from the novel The Three Imposters or The Transmutations by Arthur Machen. It was edited by Jeffrey Lavin, with music composed and performed by Samantha Hunt. Heather, the narrator, was played by Samantha Hunt, and James was played by Jonathan Inbody. Quinn Farner played Dr. Haberman, and Charleston Harvey played the downstairs neighbor. Gray Matter is a Word Search Media production. Any similarities to real people, places, or things is purely coincidental. Be kind. Rewind.